Hello, everyone, and welcome to another amazing episode of Black Girls Getting Their Shift Together. My name is Ursula B, and I'm your host for tonight. Tonight, we have a really great topic. It always hits my soul whenever these kind of topics come up. And as you know, it's about toxic sayings that are said in the Black families. And because it's so ingrained in our families, we don't realize how toxic it can be and how it can be a problem, what the issue is with it, but we're also going to give solutions. So before we get into that, I'm going to play this intro.
This for the queens, sisters manifesting their dreams. Get your cream by any means and beam with self-esteem. Beauty supreme and booty walk so mean. The way you fit in them jeans, you eat your cornbread and greens. Dance or a doctor, red wine or vodka. Redesign your spot and redefine your mantra. Retwist your locks and realign your chakras. Doing your squats and getting closer to God, huh? Brunching with your squad or taking a girl's trip. Adjust your crown, you God's gift to the world, sis. Celestial body, drink your water. Meditate, sun kiss goddess, heavenly order. Levitate, tribe of Ashanti, black girl magic, melanin popping, whether you ratchet or lavish, whether you bougie or savage, you a gift and a treasure. You got to love a black girl getting a shift together. Black girls are getting a shift together. These black girls getting a shift together, man. These black girls are getting a shift together. These black girls getting a shift together, dog.
And we're back. All right. Before we get into this amazing episode, we're going to take care of some housekeeping first. Make sure if you're listening, please type in the comments which city, state you're calling in from or listening from. Make sure if it's on a replay, you type replay and just show the special guest some love. Tell her hello, send some hearts. And if there are any light bulb moments that just makes your soul vibrate and it resonates, put some light bulb emojis in the chat as well. Also, please like, comment, subscribe this channel and share it so we can get these algorithms up. There's some good info on my podcast. More of the world needs to hear it. And also, if you're listening on the audio podcast, give your girl a 5-star review, please. I know you like it because I look at the analytics. I see it. So give it to me. Give me all the love. All right, we're going to get right into it tonight. As I said, this was about toxic messages that are in the Black household that are sayings. So I have licensed therapist Viola Borden coming on, and I'm going to bring my lovely friend out of the waiting room.
Hey.
Hey.
How are you?
I'm well. Okay. Hey, Lala Chanel. I don't know who that is, but I like that
Hi,
name.
Lala. That's my sister.
She's my sister too, then. Hey, Lala.
Absolutely. We're all sisters.
We are. So I want to give everybody a quick backstory how I met Lori. Lori and I are from the same zip code.
And you're saying Lori and it's Viola.
Oh, that's right.
People don't know me as that, but yeah.
Viola. This is going to be challenging. So yes, Viola. I have to keep looking at your name instead of saying the L word. So Viola and I, we grew up in the same zip code many years back. We're from the same city, state, and we grew apart. I moved, she moved, and we both are here. Hey, Lala, she said, hey. And now we are both here we were in the same city, but we've always had this connection with each other. And I didn't realize it then, but to me right now, I feel like that was spirit matching spirit, energy matching energy. What are your thoughts on that?
Absolutely. Yeah. I think that when we really kind of reconnected and began to connect, we didn't really connect until we began connecting spiritually, until we opened up and we had the opportunity to kind of like expand on some things. That's when we began to realize how spirit matched we were.
Yeah. I think that's amazing. And I feel like when a person does work on themselves, like the inner work, the self mastery, you start you start losing people, things, items, careers, but you also gain some really
Mm-hmm.
positive factors in your
Absolutely.
life, and you're one of them to me.
Absolutely. And ditto.
Yeah. So, I know how prepared you like to be, but I'm gonna throw you a little curveball. I didn't want to tell you. We'll do
I
this.
know you was gonna get me. I knew you were gonna get me.
We're gonna do this really quick, okay? I'm
Okay.
gonna put a picture on the screen, and I want you to please read it and then follow the instructions. All right. Okay.
Okay. So, oh, you really testing these glasses. Um, one has to go and all his work.
Uh-huh. And can you read the names?
Yes. Oh,
Read them out loud for me,
so we
please.
have Denzel Washington, Morgan
Um,
Freeman, Sam Jackson, Eddie Murphy, Will Smith, and Lawrence Fishburne.
okay.
Oh,
And you have
oh, oh.
30 seconds to answer. And anybody
Oh my
listening,
gosh. Oh my gosh. Why are you doing this to me?
yes, and anybody
Oh,
listening,
I am so tempted to say Will Smith. Oh gosh, but no, that can't happen.
you got 20 seconds.
Okay, you know what? I hate to do it. I hate to do it, but it's gonna have to be. Oh gosh, why are you doing this to me?
You have 10 seconds.
Ooh, Morgan Freeman.
Oh, damn. Really?
Morgan Freeman.
Interesting.
Yeah, I think at first I was tempted to say Will Smith, right? And then I start thinking about I Am Legend and all of these other like good, really good movies that I really enjoyed. And then I start thinking Eddie Murphy, and I'm like, oh, but Eddie Murphy had Raw, and that's such a big part of my childhood growing up, the comedy, and yeah, that was a struggle.
It was.
Thank you for that.
I had to rattle it up a little bit.
I know,
What I had to do.
I know how
Okay.
you do.
And Lala said, I say Lawrence because he was Ike and I'm still mad.
Right.
That's funny. That's funny.
Oh,
I like that. All right. Well, I just had to, break the ice a little bit, just a little bit. So, what we're going to do now is get into tonight's topic, and it is about toxic messages in Black households with you, Viola Borden. Hmm.
yes.
So, first of all, how would you describe in your words, what do you consider toxic? Like a toxic family? Like,
Oh, toxic is so relative, right? Because it
yeah.
depends on what can be toxic in one household might not be considered toxic in another, right?
Mhm.
But I think that toxic is dysfunctional ways of thinking,
Mm.
behaving. Um, they cause disruption in regular or healthy development, right? Anything that
Ooh.
causes dysregulation, right, can be
Ooh.
considered to some degree toxic, right?
Okay, I'm already triggered because it
Mm-hmm.
makes sense. It makes
Mm-hmm.
sense. And we're going to talk about the sayings that we say in our household. And if anyone you're listening, if you can think of some sayings, type them in the comment section, please. Because even though Viola and I are having this dialogue, we want to learn from you all as well. So let's go into the first one.
Okay.
All right, let's see if I can get it up here.
So before we get into it, though, I do want to say something that I think is important before we go in and start really dissecting this. If you can give me
Yeah.
just a second to say a few things.
Uh-huh.
Okay, so first I want to say that these common phrases, right, are and expressions are, I know that we're going to address them, but they're based in survival, right? Like a lot of these things that parents passed on from generation to generation are ancestrally rooted, right? And it's based in survival. A lot of it is was built and based on protection, lack of knowledge for certain subjects or things, and they didn't understand, right, at the
Mm-hmm.
time that they were saying this and passing down generation to generation, that it would have some level of toxicity or dysfunction, right? It was about
Mm.
survival. You know what I mean? It was about teaching our children to not necessarily just survive, but how to thrive, right? In a society that didn't really accept them solely based on the color of their skin. So a lot of this stuff, I get it. I don't want people to think because we're picking it apart, right? That means
Mm.
that your parents or your ancestors were bad people and they were toxic people, right?
Mm.
These things, a lot of it comes just out of ignorance, or, and not ignorance how some people mean it, but just not knowing, you know? So I do want to acknowledge that before we got into it.
I like that you said that caveat about it's not about um downgrading our ancestors, our immediate ones, our parents and grandparents, aunts, uncles, but knowledge is power. So it's like if you
Mhm.
don't know, you don't know. I
Mhm.
didn't know for a long time. This is all new to me, and I'm finding out about
Mhm.
myself literally, no, I'll say every other day.
Right.
I want to
Absolutely.
say
Because
every
you need
day.
a day to absorb it, right?
Yes, because I know when I have my group therapies, I am triggered AF, and it does take a while from, especially over the past 3 weeks. And if she's listening, she knows what I'm talking about. But it really
Mhm.
takes a while for me to just settle in after I'm processing it, and it's a lot. But knowledge is
Absolutely.
power.
Absolutely.
Knowledge is power. And Lala agrees as well. I just saw her comment. So, anything else you want to add before we get into our first dissection?
No, I want to share something that I found later on, but we can get into some dissection and then I'll get into a little bit more about like some of the things that the research and people say out there about these
Okay.
things.
So
Mhm.
yeah, you just cut me off whenever you're ready for that part. So the first one we'll talk about is the problem of this saying is what goes on in this house stays in this house. So we're going to talk about the issues of it as well as a solution. And I love that we do talk about issues and problems, but I love that we have solution based. And I really pride myself on my
Mhm.
podcast being solution based.
Absolutely. I can't be there for it if it's just problem based. I need to get to the solution. I'm a problem solver. You know what I mean?
Yes.
So I can't just leave cliffhangers. Yeah.
Right. So what's the
Mhm.
issue with this saying what goes on in this house stays in this house?
Well, first of all, I feel like it serves as a breeding ground for traumatic experiences. And it also promotes protection for like pedophiles and victimizers, right? Because they
Mm,
know, right? When we take that topic and we talk about what goes on in this house, and we're not talking about when they say, you know, simple things. We're talking about the deep degree that this can affect a person, right? Because this is generations and generations of being passed down, and talking about what goes on in this house stays in this house. You're not allowed to talk about what goes on outside of this house, right? So we're
mm.
not talking about something simple. We're talking about the negative impact that this can have, right?
Absolutely.
Right. So, and this one is a big one. This is the main one that when I was doing research, I found all over the internet. Right. And they talk about
Mm,
it because of the sexual trauma that has happened due to this particular phrase and saying, and growing up under this, and you don't have the right to communicate or talk about what goes on in this house, right? So when Uncle so and so touches me, and I really wanted to talk about the potential for trigger warnings, people really have to understand that some of these things
yes.
could be a trigger. So I really just want to put a trigger warning out there, right?
And there's
So,
certain words on YouTube we can't say, like the A word or the M word. Yeah,
mm-hmm.
you can just go
Okay, so I'll
around it.
just okay.
Say it
So,
like,
and I don't know those words, so pray not, that they don't
yeah.
come out my mouth. Bleep me if you need to,
I'm
right?
gonna put it in the private chat right now. But go ahead.
Absolutely.
Hmm.
Absolutely. So, it can serve as a breeding ground for traumatic experiences, right?
Uh-huh.
And so that's the biggest issue, right? That it encourages us not to speak our truths, right?
Mm-hmm. That
Right. So
is
it encourages us not to speak our truth.
that's perfectly said, about not
Mhm.
speaking the truth. And it's about holding secrets all the time.
Absolutely. Absolutely. My sister reminded me of a saying earlier when we were talking, we're only as sick as our secrets. right? I know people have probably
Hmm.
heard that one. Have you heard that one?
I have not.
That's a very popular one. We're only as sick as our secrets.
Explain that.
Meaning, okay, when you have the depth of your secret, right? That's something that you're
Mhm.
holding in. It's almost like toxic toxicity
Oh.
remaining within your body, right? That you need to purge, you need to get it out, right? So the depth of the secret, right? The trauma
Mhm.
that we're holding in, right?
Mhm.
Increases the potential toward the amount of sickness that we experience, right? So we're only as sick
Mm.
as our secrets,
That
right?
makes sense. That
Hmm.
makes sense.
Yeah.
May I read this story that I
Hmm.
doing this research, and you let me know your thoughts on it. I will keep it very brief. Let's see if I can. Here it is. So this is from Madame Noir, and it talks about not speaking your speech. So what goes on in this house stays in this house, and we drill this lesson into our kids without questioning it because we do not want folks knowing our business. And you know what,
Hmm.
black folks, we are so, and I've said it before too. I don't want them knowing my business. But
Hmm.
yeah, there's no anyways, so we all know kids can talk. However, when we impart these words to our kids, we could unknowingly be doing them more harm than good. So this author named Antoinette White, she discovered a few years back when she had an eye-opening experience with her then teenage son. It was early morning, and after spending a few hours with his dad because they were divorced, he had come home to take a shower before school, and Antoinette was she was annoyed that he didn't go straight to school from his dad's place. So she started screaming, "We're gonna be late, we're gonna be late." And he replied, "Well, I haven't showered in 2 days." And it turned out that his father's utilities were turned off. And when she asked her son, why didn't he tell her? He repeated back the same words she's always told him: what goes on in this house stays in this house. However, it was then at that time that she realized the limitations of silencing our kids about what goes on at the home. But it just didn't end right there. She realized that this silencing is what kept her from telling anyone that she had been sexually aided by her dad from 6 to 12 years old.
Hmm. And see how generationally we pass it down unknowingly, right? The damage, the
Mhm.
amount of damage that we're causing. It's out of self-preservation and survival, right? To
Mm.
keep the secrecy of what goes on in here. I don't want people knowing what's in. It's almost a sense of self-preservation, but at the same time, the same bars that we're creating to keep people out are the same bars that we're using to imprison our children, right?
Mhm.
So they're not realizing the damage, and it was probably in that moment that she addressed when it came back at her in that way, right? Began to understand the damage that it did to her by seeing the damage that it was currently doing to him.
Right. And I don't give families a pass because I feel like they do know if there's something that's not right going on in the house. Because think about it, if the kids are around, oh, don't go around uncle such and such, don't go around auntie such and such. Why?
Mhm.
They know, but still just
But
don't
it's in
say
the
anything.
household. It's one thing
Excuse
to
me.
know within the household, right? But we're talking about external. We're talking about people outside and judgment, fear of judgment, right? What are
Mm.
other people gonna feel or say or think about us, right? So this
Yeah.
would be a good place for me to talk about the article
Yeah.
that I was like, I gotta share some snippets from this article, right? So it's an article from the American Psychological Association, right? And
Yeah.
it says, here we go, promoting culturally affirming parenting and African American parents, right? So it says a primary goal of parenting is to transmit values, beliefs, ideas, and lifestyles based on cultural knowledge of the adult tasks and competencies needed for appropriate functioning in society, right? For
Mhm.
African American parents, transmitting an awareness of cultural values and norms is integrated into parenting, right? So they're saying us as African Americans, right? We integrate cultural values into our kids, right?
Mhm.
And norms, right? So it's saying, so it also goes on to say, through the experience of slavery, Jim Crow laws enacted after Reconstruction period in forms of modern racism, microaggressions, and
Ooh.
oppression, right? So, in response, corporal punishment has been utilized as a way to control and restrain the behavior of children and youth, right? So, due to slavery, right? And Jim Crow and microaggressions and all these things. And that's why when I said it's not about internal, we know what's going on internally in-house. We deal with it, right? But it's about the judgment, it's about the outside, it's about the external, right? How we're
Mm.
viewed, right? So we put all these pressures on our kids, we put all these sayings and phrases to cage our kids in their behavior because, and I hate to say it, that sometimes it begins to come down to more about how we're viewed, right? When you're being viewed based on simply the color of your skin, right?
Mhm.
We put certain restrictions on behaviors and things like that on our children, and we impose upon them. So we use these phrases, keep them in line, and these things, right? So they're saying corporal punishments and all these things begin to come into place due to slavery. So I think that's why I said this has ancestral roots, right?
It absolutely does.
It goes way back.
And I agree with you with like with the corporal punishment. So you know what high school I went to, the Catholic one. I want to say it on air. There was nothing but white. It was a white school. Well, it just was. There wasn't that many blacks. So I grew up around a lot of white people, and I've been in their homes as a child. I have never, and anybody listening, you let me know if your experience is different. I never heard any of our counterparts talk about, oh, my mom's gonna whoop my ass when I get home. I'm not saying that they don't do it. I'm just saying I never heard them talk about switches and getting the uh, switch off the bush, which
Mm-hmm.
is nothing but a modified whip that
Mm-hmm.
slave masters use.
Mm-hmm.
It does go back. It goes way
Mm-hmm.
back. And again, growing up, that was normal. We had I hate to say a good, but we had a good switch bush. People would come in our
Oh,
yard.
so did we. It lined our whole driveway. Trust me. I looked at it
Oh,
every day and knew I did not want to have to be out there picking one of those. Okay.
yeah.
Absolutely.
It's just what we know. So let me, with those little yellow flowers on it, and you take the,
Oh, yeah. And you know the sound too.
yeah. I
Yeah.
really do not believe that I'm not saying they don't. I just never saw it. I never saw it. May I read a comment?
Mm-hmm.
So Lala said, we often feel the need to keep up with appearances. I think that may stem all the way back from early ancestry.
Mm-hmm.
I agree.
Absolutely. Because it's about the outside world, right? How they view us. When you're being viewed on the basis of your skin, right? You have to have, I don't want to say perfect behavior, right? But there was a lot more authoritative parenting, right? We're going to control how you speak, how well you speak, how you conduct yourself, right? Because you're already getting judged on the color of your skin, right? So maybe if you
Mhm.
speak better, maybe if you do all of these things, right, will be viewed as acceptable in society or in the community or in the world, right? So that's why I'm
Mhm.
thinking that it stems way back, right? So they served their purpose back then, right, to keep us kind of in this box in line to be able to thrive and to survive in this, but we are fast forwarding now, right? We're in a different time and a different age that's calling for different things, right? So,
Mhm.
and we're also seeing the result of some of these phrases and some of these things and how they're affecting our children, right? So we
Absolutely.
have to self-correct. We can't just do it just cuz, right? We have to learn how to self-correct. And it says
Exactly.
children are taught to be obedient and respectful within these families and kinship networks, right? Particularly of their elders. So this is what I mean. We're taught to behave in a certain way. And these phrases are just another way to keep us in line or to keep us behaving in a way, right? The out of self-preservation for the family name, right? Or the
Mm,
people.
the name. There you go. I think it's a way of control as
Mhm,
well.
mhm.
Definitely. Lala said sometimes they would make you braid the switch too. I'm sure that may have done some psychological damage as well. Yes.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
That is a very big absolutely. That is some psychological warfare. Yeah, that's a lot. It's a lot.
Absolutely. So it talked about how history is required, how the history of slavery required that children learn to keep themselves safe, right? So
Mm-hmm.
how else better to keep them safe than to give them these things, to tell them these things that keep the outside world out. So what goes
Mm.
on in this house?
Stays in this house.
Mm-hmm.
And we know that. Um, I love listening to Dr. Joyce DeGruy,
Mm.
and she talks.
I'm not familiar with that, her,
Oh,
Dr. Joyce.
Dr. Joyce DeGruy, and she's all over the internet, and she's a professor, and she coined the term post-traumatic slave syndrome,
Mm.
and it's talking
I have
about
to
the
look up that.
Oh my God, she is amazing. So she gave an example of, and she's a lot more eloquent, but I'm gonna try my best. So things that we're talking about now, how we just navigate because it's just ingrained in us. So when you have a baby, and people will say, "Oh, he's bad. He's so bad."
Mm, mm,
Remember we talked about a little of this before. Instead of speaking life into this innocent, but in slavery days we had to do that for survival. So she gave the
mhm,
example of um like current day, modern day, if you see a white mother and her son and then a black mom and her son, and say the moms are talking about um a science fair that their sons have done. And so the black mom is telling the white mom, like, "Oh, Johnny did really good. He made a B plus and it was amazing work." And he's going on and on and on about the white son. And then the white mom's like, "Yeah, we worked really hard. I'm glad he did his best. Wait a minute, your son, he got an A plus. Oh, he didn't do nothing." And she'll downplay it, his
mhm,
achievements, but this little boy, Tyreek, we'll call him, he doesn't know the difference. He just hears his mom talking down on him, and he's excelled at what he's done. So then she said, take it back to slavery and say if a slave master says, "Oh, well, your son, like, he knows how to read." No, he doesn't know how to read, because she knows if she was to say how smart he is or how much he excelled, he'd be dead.
mhm.
So it's easier to just
Downplay.
downplay,
Mhm.
don't say anything. And now that all little off topic, I don't know if that comes when we hear us say, "Don't do that because I don't want to block my blessings." What? So it's just easier to stay quiet.
Mhm.
But
Well, I
look,
think that that came from a different place of people encouraging people to stay quiet, not to block their blessing, because they're saying sometimes sharing your blessing with people that can pray, they say can pray against you, but that's not the way my God works. Right. So,
exactly.
they say, oh, you tell too many people, then they start praying against you. They start, but I've come from the firm belief that what's for me is for me and can't nobody block
How about that? How
it.
about that? But
Mhm.
look up Dr. DeGru. She is amazing, and she's
Crazy. Mhm.
powerful. So Marita,
Absolutely.
before we go on to the next topic, so Lala said prime examples of positive and negative reinforcements. It's often said that thoughts become things when a parent speaks life into their child, and it encourages them to achieve their goals. Absolutely.
Mhm,
Speak.
mhm.
Thank you, Lala.
Absolutely, and let me tell you, you gotta have me back on later, and I'll talk to you about how thoughts become things, because she knows, my sister knows, we talk about this often. Thoughts are physical things, that when you think a
Mm,
thought, it becomes a physical thing in your brain, right? That
right.
thoughts are physical things, but that's a whole nother topic, but we'll get on that on another show.
I guess you're gonna have to come back.
Yeah,
Ah.
absolutely, I'm here for it, honey.
So let's go on to the next uh term.
Well, we
The
didn't really talk about the solution, right? And
oh
that's very
yeah,
simple, right? The
I'm
solution is
sorry.
very simple. Is to
Yes.
encourage our kids to seek help, even if it's outside. Even if it's outside of
Mm.
the home, right? Because we want to believe, right, that we're so open and our kids can talk to us about anything, right? Which may be true to some degree, right? But encouraging our kids to talk to us, but if they ever feel that they can't, encouraging them to talk to whomever, right? An adult or an authority figure outside the home. I think
I
that's the best thing that we can do.
love that.
Mhm.
Yeah, because maybe some parents, and I'm reading this book also about immature parents, that they do not create a safe space. But I feel if that parent lets their ego down so that they would allow their child to go and seek help outside of the
Mhm.
house, I think that's amazing. I really do.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Just setting the foreground, right? Just saying, hey,
Mhm.
listen, I know we have a great relationship, but if there's ever a time that you feel that I can't,
Oh,
right?
I love that.
I give you permission to. We have to give them permission to. Absolutely. Yeah.
I love that.
Hmm.
And if I was a child, that would be very encouraging for me. It won't I
Absolutely.
won't feel like I'm doing something wrong by talking to somebody outside of the house. As
Absolutely. And we just tell them like it's a natural thing, right? It's a natural
Mhm.
thing. I would prefer for my kids to come to me, right? But if there's ever a time that you feel that you can't, I want you to know it's okay to go
Yeah.
outside. Yeah,
Nice.
absolutely. Okay, so we can go on to the next.
All right. Blood, this is a problematic saying that blood is thicker than water. So now we're going to talk about the issues that come with that as well
Oh,
as the solution. Let's get
yeah,
it.
and that I will have to partner up with one of my all-time biggest issues, right? The
Yeah.
concept of loyalty in the African American community when I was coming up. I don't know what's out there now, right?
Mhm.
But the concept of loyalty, that's where we had the ride or die chick era came out of that. This word loyalty is something that is like somebody running their fingers across a chalkboard for me,
Mm.
right? Because now we're going to talk about the issues, right? It
Mhm.
promotes continuation of unhealthy relationships, right? Obstructs the concept of self-protection.
Wait, what
And
does that mean? What do you mean?
like, okay, so if you have a person that does something, right, that's wrong or right, and you're supposed to ride till the wheels fall off, no matter what happens, right? You're supposed to be loyal. You that down chick, right?
Right.
So that means even to my own detriment,
Ooh.
right? Because if I don't, then I'm not loyal,
Mm.
right? So I feel like it can obstruct, right, the concept of self-protection, self-love. I feel like loyalty, right, without love is dangerous because it's blind,
Loyalty without love.
right? And that's not just love for the other person. That's love for yourself. Following
Mm.
somebody blind allegiance, that's not healthy,
That's
right?
problematic.
It's problematic, and it also, right, it decreases self-autonomy, which means that I'm just going along to get along, right?
Right.
And that's not good, right? And if you love somebody, you tell them the truth. If you love somebody, you tell them they're wrong. If you love somebody, you don't ride with them when they're doing something that you know is absolutely wrong,
Right. Right.
because there's no growth in that, right?
None.
So that's some of the issues and some of the things that I think that come out of that can come out of that. Blood is thicker than water. You got family, then it's like, okay, well, I got an auntie or a sister that treats me like crap, right? But there's a friend up the street that treats me like gold.
Oh, you just triggered something in my head. May I share a story with you?
Absolutely.
Okay. Someone who I used to know a long time ago, she said, now they're older than us. And she said that at one of their family functions, oh my God, I can't believe it just popped in my head. At one of their family functions, it was, I don't want to say how many kids there were, but they're all adult siblings. And her and her siblings started arguing, and he went right over to her and slapped her in her face. I said, "So what did you do?" So of course they had it out. They literally were fighting, and I'm talking about fighting with fists and slapping
I
and
can imagine one of
kicking.
my family members come and slap me in my face. We're gonna be fighting too.
Yeah, but I said, "Well, what did you do after that?" "Oh, we all just had dinner after that." What the fuck? I would leave. And I said, "Well, why did you say?" "Well, that's my sibling. We're supposed to stick together. Our parents told us no matter what,
Mm-hmm.
we stick together." I said,
Mm-hmm.
"But he just slapped you in your face."
And he probably gonna slap her again.
Oh, they had a no, you're right. They have a long history of physical
Absolutely.
confrontation.
It promotes that behavior because no matter what I do to you, right?
Yeah.
Even when I act unloving towards you, right?
Disrespectful.
Act disrespectful, all that, right? I'm your family. And we gotta be family. And I said a concept to somebody and their mind was blown one time. I said I don't have a lot of family. They was like, well, what do you mean? I said I just don't know, like literally I don't have a lot of family living left, but I don't have a lot of family. I have relatives. I have people I'm related to.
Ooh,
And for
I
me
know
there's a
what you
difference.
mean. Huge
There's a
difference between
difference, right?
relatives and
I'm
family.
related to some people, but family for me is the function, it's the behavior, it's how we treat each other, right? I had a
Mm.
cousin years ago, and she's an older cousin, and she said, family ain't family if they don't act like family. And I was like, what's wrong with you? That's wrong. She's like, no, I'm telling you the truth. But I get it now. Now that I'm older and I have the experience and I understand, right? That
Right.
I get it now. We're related, but we may not be family. That's my thought.
I concur with you. I feel sometimes people have they feel like they have an all access pass for disrespect and lack of boundaries just because we share the same DNA.
Absolutely. But the crazy part about it, and we're going to get into the boundaries because that's part of the solution, right? Is
Mm.
encouraging the development of boundaries, right? I find that people have, the closer the relationship, the harder time they have creating boundaries. And I tell a
Mm.
lot of my clients all the time, those are the people that boundaries are developed for. The closer the relationship, the more boundaries that you need to have in place, right? But it's
Mm.
harder if you ask them to create a boundary for their significant other, if you ask them to create a boundary for a friend, a girlfriend, but you ask them to create a boundary for their mother or a parent, they struggle. For a sister, right? But that's because blood thicker than water, that whole loyalty, right? Family loyalty
Mm-hmm.
comes into play. So our family is supposed to be able to do whatever, right? And we're supposed to always remain in the mindset that we're family and function like we're family. That's why we have so many dysfunctional families, because they're
Right.
together, piled up all on top of each other, right? Talking about each other, backstabbing each other, fighting each other, right? Fight for each other, but then they'll turn around and come in the household and fight each other. Those are it's unhealthy relationships,
It
right?
really is.
Absolutely. So the encouragement, the solution is encouragement for the development of boundaries, right? To serve as a reminder to protect yourself from poor treatment,
Hmm.
right?
Exactly. And I,
Yeah.
I have read that you're right. Boundaries aren't for the other person, it's for yourself. Is definite.
Well, they can be for the other person too. Boundaries can be for the other person.
Really?
Absolutely. When you look at a fence, right? When you put a fence around your house, I always explain boundaries as a fence around your home, right? Now, that fence could be to keep people out, right? But it could
Mhm.
also keep my pit bull from coming out and attacking you, right?
Ah, yes, yes, yes.
So, in
Yeah.
order to keep you safe from me having an adverse reaction or extreme
Mhm.
reaction that could damage this relationship, right? So,
Mm.
it could also be to protect another person. Listen, in order for me not to flip out on you, I'm going to need you to not do this. So that
Mm.
protects the other person from you.
I love it. Um, I can see why holding boundaries could be challenging for some people, and I'm really talking about myself because
Probably in a
I
lot of us others too.
exactly, I grew up, I didn't see boundaries. They were constantly violated, they were disrespected, they were void, it didn't exist. So, unfortunately, as an adult, I in turn had relationships where I didn't recognize that boundaries were being violated. And I'm when I say relationships, like romantic relationships with my
Mhm.
partners.
Because it crosses over absolutely into adulthood. But you know, when I teach boundaries, right, I teach that there's like three different stages of boundaries. You have the development of boundaries and consequences, then you have the communication of those, because a person can't respect something that they don't know, right? And
Mm.
then you have the maintenance. Now the maintenance is the execution of the consequences,
Ooh.
right? So if you give a person a boundary and then you have a consequence but you don't enact it, it makes the boundary null and void, right? So you
Yeah.
got people smacking boundaries like, get those things out of here, they don't mean nothing, right? Because there's no effective consequence attached to it. In order to maintain a boundary, you have to have an effective consequence. A lot of people don't like to talk about consequences, especially when you're talking about people that are close to you, right? When you're talking about your
Mhm.
mother, when you're talking about your sister, when you're talking about those people. But the reality is that you have to have an effective consequence. You have to have something that you're willing to enact, right? That if this
Mhm.
person crosses that boundary, that you don't have a problem with executing that consequence, whatever that may look like. Right?
Right.
And that could be the the need to enact a detached contact or a no contact rule,
What is
right?
detached contact?
Well, a detached contact would be something more like the ability to physically be present, right? But emotionally detached, right? So if
Ah,
I can be in
yes.
your presence, right, and you got a behavior, you're doing things, and I'm just going to emotionally detach, that means that you don't even affect me. I can be physically present, right?
Gray
But
rock.
you're not going to affect me, right? But
Yeah.
then a no contact rule is cut off. And a lot of people go straight to the cutoff, right? Because it's too much work for us to be in the presence of someone who's showing a bad behavior or doing something and us not to react, to train ourselves to not react, to emotionally detach from that person so that person can't evoke a negative response out of us, right? That's too much
Ooh.
work. So you know what? I'm gonna go ahead
Ooh.
and I'm gonna cut cuz and them. I'm gonna cut them off. I don't talk to them no more.
Yeah. You know what
No need
I've
for self-regulation, right?
right. You know what I've experienced that you're really making my head like a lot of light bulb moments come out that I was actually caught in that loop in that middle part of their boundaries where they were weak with a family member. And so instead of just going straight to no contact, which in retrospect, that should have been for that, the things that were going on, that should have happened.
Mm-hmm.
But I was caught in a constant loop of blood is thicker than water. I'm
Mm-hmm.
going to let it slide. And
Mm-hmm.
then 30 something years go by and, it was too much,
Absolutely.
but it is
Absolutely.
no contact now. And
Mm-hmm.
I went through stages of it where with the no contact, then I felt guilty. Then I would get
Mm.
mad at
Mm.
myself because I felt guilty. So then the
Mm-hmm.
boundaries, okay, well, I'm gonna loosen them up. And then it was toxic. So
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
now
And
I'm
the
at the
thing about it is that if you have the ability, right, to do
mhm,
a detached contact, right,
mhm.
then maybe there's guilt because maybe I could be around a person I'm not trying hard enough. We put stuff on us, right? But the reality is that if that person does not allow for you to emotionally detach, and they're that person that's going to keep
Ooh,
pushing the boundary and pushing the boundary, then the best thing for
girl.
you to do, right, is to create safe distance. Because remember, boundary isn't just about keeping me safe. It's about keeping you safe from me. Because if you keep pushing, you might get a really extreme or bad reaction out of me,
Right.
right? So it's about protecting them too. So sometimes we feel guilty, but the reality is we're also protecting that person from us because we might have an adverse reaction
Mm.
if we stay in the relationship or stay in contact.
May I read a couple more
Absolutely.
comments? So Lala said, so many times in life we are taught to to put others before ourselves. And we
Mm,
often forget that self preservation is key. And yes, it is the first, what is it, the first order of nature? Self
mm,
preservation.
mhm,
I totally
mhm,
agree what Lala is saying.
mhm.
Even
Absolutely.
and
Absolutely.
another comment, it's natural to feel a sense of grief when, yeah, when we have to cut off someone, especially someone we love.
Mhm. But
Yeah.
the thing about it is that it's not encouraged. So we don't know how to do it healthily, right? We do need to grieve the loss, right? But we're not taught to cut off these relationships. So why are we grieving, right? A family member, we're taught to stay in, right? We don't know how to do it in a healthy way. We don't know how to cut a person off and to healthily grieve the loss, right? Because it was something that was unheard of. You just don't do it. You don't do it. Family is family. That is it, right?
Mind blown.
Yeah,
There
you
it is.
don't do it. So we don't know how to grieve. But yes, absolutely, we should know how to healthily grieve the loss, right? But it's about self-preservation, right? It's about protecting the other person. And sometimes it is necessary to do that. I'm not saying it's the go-to. I'm not saying everybody should just be cutting people off left and right? But
Mhm.
if there is no healing, there's no way, and the other person doesn't have the ability to work towards, it's about self-preservation. It's about protecting that other person from you or from themselves, hurting themselves.
Mhm.
Absolutely.
Mm.
Yeah.
I feel that sometimes when it's hard to hold a boundary, it's because there's a part of us that still wants that love from the person.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. That can be the motivation and the drive a lot of times for tolerating a lot of behaviors. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that was solution was boundaries. We'll say that, correct?
Mm-hmm.
Oh,
Or detached contact or no contact.
got it.
Mm-hmm.
Is it okay to move to the next?
Absolutely.
This one I like.
Uh,
Boys don't cry. That is extremely problematic.
mhm.
So tell me, what are the issues with this?
I really wonder, and it could be due to ignorance, but I think that we are one the minorities, right?
Mhm.
Are the main people that impose this rule upon their children, especially our young men. I've never seen a adult white male looking down at his son telling him that he should not cry. I've never seen it.
Let me think. I don't think I know I haven't. No.
If anybody out there, has experienced different, I would love to hear that view. But I don't know any other race
Oh,
outside like other Latinos, right?
can you repeat that again? Because your audio went out. You
Oh,
said
okay. So
you
I'm
don't see
saying
any other race?
minorities, us, African Americans, Hispanics, us minorities, and especially in the African American community, right? We tell
Mm.
our boys they can't cry from the time they're young. And I'm sitting in rooms with grown men, and I'm sitting on panels and different meetings, right? And I'm listening to the effect that this has on grown men to this day.
Ooh.
To this day, and I'm talking into your 50s. right? There's
Yeah.
a string. I'm gonna tell you, there's a string of issues that this causes, right? And we'll talk about the issues and then we'll talk a little bit more about it, right? So it promotes emotion dysregulation. It
Break
did
that down
okay,
for us lay people.
emotion regulation is when you have the ability to regulate your emotions, to identify them, to act them out, right? So
Mm-hmm.
it promotes emotion dysregulation,
Mm-hmm.
right? It decreases emotional intelligence, right? Don't really know or understand what you're feeling, right?
Yes.
And your ability to communicate it, right?
It's so
It
true.
increases anxiety and depression.
Mm-hmm.
It increases the reliance of anger as a default emotion, the go-to emotion, right? Because anger is a secondary, right? But when
Lori,
I'm sad, right? When I'm sad or I'm hurt or I'm feeling vulnerable or uncomfortable, I get angry, right? So if I can't be sad, right, I go to my default emotion, anger, right? What's the one thing that most American men are known for? Being aggressive or angry. They say the same thing about us, right?
right.
But African American males, aggressive, they're angry, they're violent, right? Because it's a default emotion and we're taught to stay away from the vulnerable emotions, right? So not only does increase their dependence on the secondary emotion, right? The default emotion, but it also broadens the gap between men and women. I feel it broadens the gap between the connection between men and women, right? I
Right.
have seen men that when they see a woman cry, they lose their freaking mind. They don't know what to do. They don't know what to do with that, right? One of
Triggered.
two things it usually happens, right? Either they're going to become angry that you're emotional, right? Oh, what the heck you crying for now? What's wrong with you,
Wait,
right?
here's one. Here's one. A good gaslight. There you go again,
Yep.
sir.
Oh, women, so emotional, right?
Sir.
Or they're going to here, just take it, just have whatever. Just please stop doing that because it makes me uncomfortable, right?
Yeah.
So the fact that I am unhappy, right, or I'm crying, will make a man uncomfortable, right? Because they're so far detached from that
Mhm.
emotion, right? They don't want to touch it with a 10-foot spoon.
They don't. And I feel women, we have to do better about telling our little boys not to cry because it does everything what you just said. And then we wonder why when we're in our 30s, 40s, 50s, 60s that we're dating or married to these emotionally unavailable men.
Mm-hmm.
They've been groomed from young to hold it
Absolutely.
in.
What you crying for? Stop. He look. He's like, I'm 6. I'm supposed to cry, right?
Right. I'm human.
I'm 6. What else am I supposed to be doing? Encouraging them in a healthy way, right? So the solution is encouraging our young boys to healthily express their emotions, right?
Mm,
Allowing them the space to do that because we don't do that, right? And also our men, right? Our mates. If we have a man that is a little bit emotional, us as women, we attack it. We jump all over it. Some women,
yeah.
he's all up in his feelings. Oh, we don't know what to do with that because it's not a natural or normal experience for us to have men who are emotionally intelligent or don't have a fear of being in touch with their emotion. So we start calling them
Exactly.
sensitive, punks, all these other negative things, right?
Right.
So we have to create a safe space too. Because if a man is in a relationship and he doesn't feel safe and he feels like a woman is going to deem him as not a man, he's not going to.
He's not. And black women, we need to definitely do better with that. I was watching this show and it was a parent, two parents and his adult son and his fiance. And so the father was very emotional and overwhelmed that his only son is getting married and he's giving his son all the accolades like son I'm so proud of you. And so as he's speaking he's choking up and then he gets a napkin and takes his glasses off and he's weeping but it was tears of joy.
Mm-hmm.
Do you know his wife tapped him? That's enough. Stop.
Wow. So my outward display of love and
Oh,
affection for my son is too much and makes you uncomfortable. And we've been, it kind of is a brainwashing. We brainwash our boys to think that they're not supposed to cry, and then we brainwash our women to think that men who cry are not men.
yeah.
We got to
But
stop that.
we have to. We
Yeah.
have to.
So we have to, like I said, encourage our young men to speak health in touch with their emotions, give them space to do that, giving our men in these relationships space to do that. And I'm not saying having a man that's just weeping all the time. Nobody wants that, because you don't want
Mhm.
no woman that's weeping all the time.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? So that's why I said I use the word healthily express, right?
I
Healthily
like
express.
that. I
Yeah.
like that.
And make space for that. Absolutely.
And we got another absolutely right there. Can you see my screen when I put up the text?
Yeah, I can, but I have it small so I can keep my notes on the other side. So
Yeah.
that's why I'm kind of looking at in this direction, and it's a little small, but yeah.
Well, let me read this. Lala said, I feel that's where the term angry black man or angry black woman stems from. We are seen as inherently angry by other races.
Hmm. Absolutely, because we're not taught proper emotion dysregulation. I mean, regulation. Hmm.
And as black women, we also need to learn that it is okay to rest in our femininity. We have to remind ourselves that our shoulders are too dainty to carry burdens.
Hmm.
She's preaching
Absolutely.
right now.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
I absolutely agree. And that it is okay for a man to show up being not feminine, but
But that's that right there. That urge, right, to call it a feminine thing.
right.
That's where we're at in the society, that showing emotion, right, or being tearful or sad is considered feminine.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, if that was the case, then why do men have tear ducts?
Right. But
To keep
we
their
gotta
eyes
keep
moist.
but we gotta keep it real. Some women show up in the masculine as well. I mean,
Hmm.
like with that mom, like, that's enough. And she was very stern with it. That's
Hmm.
enough.
Hmm. But
Like,
that's what I mean, because guess what? It somehow reflects on me that I'm with a man that's not a man because he's too emotional,
oh,
right?
okay, I'm having these light bulb moments. And that's what, so I'm in my group therapy, and that's what our therapist talks about, showing up with the perfectionism
Mm-hmm.
right
Because it's
there.
now a reflection of me, right? What man did I choose? What man am I with? Mm-hmm.
Mm. So the solution is to hold safe spaces.
Encourage our young boys to healthily express their emotions from young, right? That it's okay, right?
Hmm.
And also seeking therapy if it's necessary.
Ooh, I love that. I'm
Yeah. Yeah, because
such
some women gonna look and be like, that is not my issue to fix. you know?
right.
But so seek therapy.
And it's okay.
And it's okay. Absolutely. Absolutely.
Okay, here's our last one. This is very problematic.
Oh yeah.
Do as I say and not as I do.
Yeah, that this one I put this one up for topic because I remember raising my kids. I was really young. I had children young, and I had kids, and I remember my grandmother who raised me look at me and said, "You can't tell a kid to do as I say and not as I do."
Can you repeat that again? Because you're can
Really.
you repeat that? Can you repeat that again? Because your audio went out.
Okay, so she said, "You can't tell your kids to do as I say and not as I do. You can't." She said, "You can't," right? And
Hmm.
I didn't really understand it then, but it stuck with me. It really stuck with me, right? Because we're talking about kids, like you talk about, look at kids from the time they're young, they're sponges. They soak
Right.
everything in, right? And we're thinking about, okay, I have two girls. right?
Mm-hmm.
So the way that I behave and the way that I do, I can tell them, don't let a man do this, don't let a man do that. But if they're watching me as a woman allow these things to happen, what does that say about them as women? What does that
Oh.
teach them to be as women, right? And I'm looking at you saying, don't do this, right? But the reality is that they're going to absorb it, because my role, right, is not just to parent them, but as a woman is to model for them, right? So it's not just about parenting them, but being a woman, to show them what being a woman and how a woman shows up in the world, right?
Mm.
So I can't tell them do as I say and not as I do, right? Because in the parenting aspect, that might make a lot of sense, right?
Right.
But they're watching. They're not just hearing, right? They're also watching me as a woman and how I'm
Right.
carrying myself.
Mm.
And it's the same thing with fathers. Why do you think you have so many daughters or so many sons that repeat behaviors that they hate about their parents? Because their parents told them, right? But they absorb what they see. They're taking that information in and visually processing this, right? This is what a woman does and how she shows up in the world and how she behaves. Regardless of what she told me, what did I see?
Mm.
So my grandmother always said, you can't tell a kid to do as I say and not as I do. Right. And so some of the issues, it can increase development of dissonance, right? And you know what dissonance is? It's having conflicting realities, right? So
Right.
you're doing one thing, right, but saying another. Confusion, internal
Right.
dissonance. It's just confusion going on, right? It can cause unrealistic expectations, right? Because my thing is, if you don't have the ability or the strength, right, to not do it, how can you put that expectation on your kids, right?
Right.
And also it can cause breed resentment, right? Breed resentment due to hypocrisy.
Okay, that makes a lot of sense.
You
That's
don't
huge
tell
for me right
me,
there.
you
That's
don't tell
huge.
me not to do it, but you doing it all day long, right? Breeds resentment,
You
right? And
know,
also it can impede good judgment. They'll begin to question their judgment.
uh,
Maybe I don't know what's good,
mhm.
right? And also cause identity issues. I don't know how to show up in the world. Do I do what she's saying, even though that's not what, I'm pulling towards, or do I do what I saw growing up, what I learned? I just don't know how I'm going to show up. So how about I just show up as whatever?
See, and I see how that can spill over into adult relationships with your partner. And so then when you don't know if you're coming or going in the relationship
Mhm.
is over, and then we're left to think, who are we? I lost
Mhm.
myself. We
Mhm.
never had that attachment to ourselves from the get-go.
Mhm. Absolutely.
Damn.
Cuz I never understood who to be, cuz my mother was giving me conflicting messages,
Mm.
or father, right? Conflicting messages. Absolutely.
Light bulb. Exactly, Lala.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah,
That
so the solution would be to increase self-exploration, right? Look
mhm.
deeper, look inside yourself, choose your words wisely and your actions, right?
Mhm.
And also be intentional, right, about setting a positive example.
Mm. I love what you said about the self-exploration. I'm always a fan of doing shadow work. It is
Mhm.
not,
I do it a lot. I do it a lot. Yeah.
let me tell you,
Mhm.
I'm not even going to sugarcoat it. The shit is real. Finding out about yourself, like for real about
For
yourself.
real, right? All those dark corners where the cobwebs are, let's get to them. Absolutely.
Right. As I feel a lot of us, and definitely including myself, oh, that's a cobweb that I have deep down. Oh, just
Yeah,
to the
just push that
side,
box in front of it, right?
push the
And
box in front,
put a plant with a nice colorful flower in front of it. We'll be all right.
or an eggplant. That's always
Right.
a distraction, but it's not always. I'm just keeping it
Absolutely.
real. I mean, there's a
Absolutely.
lot of coping mechanisms, and it's not fun, but on the other side, it does help see some of the toxic patterns. Like you can see it, and so it's like now you know better, so you do better, or you just improve.
Absolutely.
You know,
Absolutely. I agree.
instead of
We have to
being
do better. And that's why
right.
I really appreciate your podcast, because you're getting the word out, right? People are
Yeah.
having the opportunity to hear so many different views. You know what I mean? So if I don't resonate with them, maybe someone else will, right? But you're having so many different views and so many different topics to get the word out there. I really appreciate your platform and what you're doing for our community. I do.
Thank you. It's needed. It's needed. And um healing can be challenging, but it's fun. You know, I'm learning for it to be fun. And that's what I hope. And I know it's working, that it can be enlightening for other people as well. I want to see
Mhm.
our community win. I love my Black folks. I want us to
Mhm.
win. We are so much more powerful than I think we even realize. Others know how powerful we are, but I don't think as a whole we know we can do so much together with the cohesiveness. But if you have a lot of people walking around with their eyes wide shut,
Mhm. Absolutely. But we have to first do our individual work, because you cannot link
absolutely.
up with anybody else until you do your individual work, right?
There you go.
Oh,
Ooh,
yeah. Let me
that's
tell you, I
that's a
have
word.
clients that come in and they're consistently talking about the world and all the problems and all the issues and all this thing. And we begin to do work. And then we go a couple months in. And then the next, they're like, I have this sense of peace. I call it the eye. Call it the eye of the storm, right? Being in the eye of the storm, because I'll ask them, they're like, I don't know. I've been good this week. I've been good. I'm like, did the situation at home change? They're like, no. Did this situation, no. What changed? Me. I I
Ah,
change, right? Because my view, my perception, the way I respond, right? My reactions to, that's what all we have control over. We do a lot of locus of control work, right? So all we have control over is I.
yeah.
Right? So when you change I, right, you can be in the midst of the storm and still be at peace. Nothing has changed. Did you get a better job yet? Nope. Did that person stop doing that? Nope. Did this happen? Did that happen? And they're like, no, none of that stuff changed. So why are you so at peace? Because my perspective of all those things changed. My understanding of
Mm,
my control over those things has changed.
mm,
Right. So when you talk about self exploration and self work and shadow work and those things, we're talking about self. Right. So a lot of people, once they begin to change themselves, right, and do that internal work, nothing outside has to change. It's nice
mm,
and ideal if it does, right?
right.
But it doesn't affect the internal me,
Oh, that's
or doesn't have
beautiful.
to.
That's
Mm-hmm.
beautiful. I like that. The
Mm-hmm.
eye of the storm.
Mm-hmm.
Lala said that accountability mirror can be very scary sometimes, but it's very necessary to promote growth and healing. And I love the word growth. It's
Mm-hmm.
progressive. It's moving forward. It's excelling. It's go, go, go. Not back.
Absolutely.
Some of us, we identify with being victims, and it's comfortably uncomfortable staying there. But then
Mm-hmm.
when you want to grow, but you're scared because you don't know what's on the other end. But I promise it is peaceful. You do gain more peace. That eye of the storm you just talked about. It's a beautiful
Mm-hmm.
thing. Beautiful. This was a good talk, love of Iola. I'm about to call you.
I heard it. I heard
This was a
it.
great talk. This was great.
We always do. We formal and informal. We always do. Yeah. I knew that I can count on that.
Yeah,
Mhm.
definitely. I am going to drop your Facebook page. Anyone listening, you can always go back and click on the link, and it's called Becoming the Leading Lady slash Man in Your Own Life. And while
Mhm.
I'm here, I'm going to like the page. Bam. I
Mhm.
just liked it. So
All
I
right.
encourage you all to definitely visit Viola's page. If you have
There's
any
tons of stuff on there, notes and stuff already for them to poke through. Absolutely, tons and tons of
really,
stuff.
I'm gonna have to
Yes.
go
I
through
mean,
it.
there's some really good stuff if people scroll back.
Mhm.
I've done so much work on that page early on. I think I had that page since 2009 or 2011. And there's some really good stuff. Poetry, poems, just a lot of good stuff on there. Hmm.
Ah, okay. Again, this was really good. And it's always a pleasure to talk to my sister in spirit. It's always,
Absolutely.
when I talk to you, I feel lighter all the time.
Well, I thank
Yeah.
you for that. That means that
Yeah.
maybe I'm doing something right, right? That when we have our conversations and our exchanges, that I'm not adding any weight,
Oh
you know. So
no,
that's
not at
good.
all. No, it's unburdening, and that's what the lightness is like. And I'm sure everyone listening, you'll feel the same way. Please reach out to Viola, go on her Facebook page, and if you want her to come back, put a heart. Oh, we already got a heart already, so here we go. We have a
Yeah,
great
we
job,
got
lady.
so much stuff to cover and ground to cover. So anytime you ask me, I'll be there for you if I'm able. Absolutely.
I would love that. Any parting words?
No, I would just say, we've kind of talked about the problem, the issues, and the solution, right? So there's no, I don't want to say excuse because I don't want that to be taken as a bad way, right? But it's
Mhm.
just sit with this, rewatch this, right? Take it in, and if it resonates with you, apply it. If it resonates with
Mm.
you in any kind of way, apply it. Just try it. Might feel foreign, might feel strange, right? But just try some of the solutions, or sit and think of some of your own solutions, right? But there are solutions.
Right. Because we do have everything we need from within. We really do.
Absolutely.
Everything. And if it can be challenging for someone, that's okay too. That's human. That's why we go see coaches. That's why if we want to go back and see what happened, what's going on from the past, we go and see therapists like Viola. It's
Mhm.
okay to seek therapy. It's okay for counseling,
Absolutely.
you know.
We live in a day and age where there's way too many resources and way too many, right, avenues for help. I mean, even low income families that have Medicaid can go get therapy. There's no excuse for anyone, right,
Yeah.
not to be accessing some of these resources and reaching out. If you don't want to go to a therapist, get a life coach. Find a life coach, right? Life coaches are more task oriented, right? Work on
Right.
one task at a time if that's what it takes, right? But just get some type of support, right? Or some
Mhm.
type of help so that we can begin to think outside of our box.
Right. I like that, thinking outside of the box instead of being stagnant.
Yeah.
And sometimes we're okay, but why not be great? Why not be good? It's just like we're in school, and if you make a C, you're passing. So why
Hmm.
not make
Hmm.
an A? Why not make a
Absolutely.
B?
And that just made me think about something. The next time you see somebody and they say, hey, you say, how you doing? And they say, okay, say, don't you want to be great? Don't you want to be more than okay? Right?
Mhm.
How do we be more than okay is okay? Okay is just okay, right? Let's be great. Let's excel.
Exactly. We could put in as much effort into ourselves as opposed to effort we put into these toxic ass relationships.
Listen, listen.
We're gonna be a ride or die. We be a ride or die for our own selves. So we can be the best self for our partner.
Absolutely. But we tend to disregard ourselves. Like she was saying, we tend to disregard ourselves. We put other people above ourselves, some people, right? And if we don't do that, then we're all the way to the other end of the extreme. right? Don't care about nobody, ain't doing it. Don't ask me for nothing. I ain't doing nothing, right? Because we're so burnt out from doing that. How about if we found the balance between the two?
No new friends.
They got songs about it, right?
Right.
Absolutely. But what if we found the balance between, you having a relationship with someone and doing something for someone, but also honoring and respecting yourself?
Oh, I like that.
Right? Find a balance.
I like that. Okay, before we get off, I have another okay. Lala said preach. So Lala, talk to us, preach. What was it when whatever one of us said when you said preach? So while we wait on her answer, anyone listening right now, because I see people are on, please, right now, I'd like for you to follow this arrow and subscribe to the channel. Make sure I made it easy for you. You just click that little box right there in the lower right corner.
Just a little click.
Just click it. Yeah. So,
absolutely.
So yeah, subscribe to the channel, please. At the least, just like it. You've been commenting, share it. So again, we can get the algorithms up because there's a lot of healing in tonight's conversation. It's not for us to hold it to ourselves. We want other people to hear it. And also on the audio podcast, please give me a 5-star review and also rate it as well. And share the podcast, share the audio. And I think that's it. Oh, and if anything resonated, you can, if you'd like to support this podcast, you can also buy me a coffee for my next podcast. I will drop that in the comment section. I should have done this earlier, but I'm going to do it now. There we go. Yeah, you can buy me a coffee for my next podcast. With that being said, this was wonderful. And, you never disappoint. Never disappoint. Oh, guess what? And Viola, guess what?
What's that?
You are still a Black girl that has her shift together.
Watch out now.
This for the queens, sisters manifesting their dreams. Get your cream by any means and beam with self-esteem. Beauty supreme and Buddha walk so mean. The way you fit in them jeans, you eat your cornbread and greens. Dance or a doctor, red wine or vodka. Redesign your spot and redefine your mantra. Retwist your locks and realign your chakras. Doing your squats and getting closer to God, huh? Brunching with your squad or taking a girl's trip. Adjust your crown, you God's gift to the world, sis. Celestial body, drink your water. Meditate, sun-kissed goddess, heavenly order. Levitate, tribe of Ashanti, Black girl magic, melanin popping, whether you ratchet or lavish, whether you bougie or savage, you a gift and a treasure. You got to love a Black girl getting a shift together. Black girls are getting a shift together. These Black girls getting a shift together, man. These Black girls are getting a shift together.